delicate a sage to train him, because he had a gift but he couldn't master it. He didn't know what to do, so the mother had to send him to Gaius. And so when he came to Gaius, and Gaius discovered that he had that gift, because this one is not for everybody, it's for the gifted ones. Gaius began to give him books to read. Read this book, you will learn how to cast this kind of spell. You will learn how to cast this kind of spell. You will learn. Gaius trained him until his potentials now became greater. Because when Gaius dies, he will become the next sage. For that city to stand, walking by the power of darkness, you will need a sage, you will need a warlock, you will need a witch, and you will need messengers. There is a very rigid training syllabus for these people. But tonight, my job is not to teach you how to become a witch. So I will teach you. I'm not one myself. I will teach you the opposite, which is the warriors in light. Because the same way you have a witch, a messenger, a witch, a warlock, and a sage in light, in the college of intercession, you have an intercessor, you have a watcher, you have a guardian, you have a custodian, and then you have a judge. If a city will be preserved, we too must raise wise men. And so, like I said, these are the people that make the city. They are the architects of a city. But this kind of growth will put laws over your soul, because the whole idea is to fine-tune your soul to be able to traffic frequencies of the Spirit of God. The same way the witch must be trained to be able to pick the signals of the Spirit, you too must be trained. And so those who walk here, they walk with God all their lives. You may not have the luxury of being a football fan. You don't know why the devil is bringing everything he's bringing. Some of our intercessors, who should have grown by now to become judges, they spent the last 7 years arguing Messi and Ronaldo, because they checked the lust of their soul. They knew that was what got their attention, and so they kept arguing. In fact, at some point where they were supposed to have an encounter to bring them to the altar, they now won a lottery to go to what's the stadium name now? To Barcelona Stadium, Camp Nou. So they were excited. They traveled to Spain, and they snapped in Camp Nou and came back and enlarged it and kept. When they are supposed to have an encounter, they open another door. The next time they will go to Madrid and they will snap with Ronaldo, and they will keep that picture for a lifetime. So instead of beholding God, they will be beholding the picture. But you see, in darkness, they know the laws. You will never find a witch worldly. You will never find a witch who is carried away by fashion. His cap is Gucci, his chain is Gucci, his suit is Gucci, his shoe is Gucci. No witch has that time, because the noise of the world will affect their transmission. This is why most of them hide in the bush. It's not because they are supposed to live in the bush. It's a testimony of separation. That is the price they pay. They cannot live among men. Men are too distracted and noisy. And so the weight of that calling drags them away, and they are in isolation. And so they wake up with enchantment and they sleep with enchantment. In fact, sometimes they walk in the forest round the clock, because there are some plants that don't appear until it's midnight. It's not every plant in the forest you see. There are certain plants that become visible at 12 midnight. And so the witch will be searching for those plants. That's why they are able to cure some ailment. And so when you have a particular challenge, they will tell you this plant is deep in the forest, but it's at certain hour of the night that it appears. And only wise men are able to trace that plant, and they will wait for that time. When it is 12:01, the plant will come out and they will catch it. If the sun begins to appear, the plant will vanish. All of those intelligence are the things they learn while working with those spirits. There are certain plants that they need to guide them on how to mix it. It's like soup. You don't start cooking with salt. It's a protocol. So they know how to mix the concoction in the right proportion in order to get the exact taste that the spirit will alight upon in order to create an impact. If you are working with that kind of delicate requirement, you won't have the luxury of watching a seasonal movie. But the average believer is controlled by lust, and his pastor helps him to call it a good life. And so he will never be burdened to find out the things that have eternal value. Even the ones who say they are ministers, they are distracted. Any dress fashion that comes out today, that's what all of us are wearing. Because we are monitoring the world to see what they will do, so that we will take dressing. And we think we can grow. If you watch some of these medieval movies, they teach you kingdom lifestyle. That's why sometimes, if I sit down, I can come here for 7 days. The television will never on. If I want to look at the screen, it's because there is something I want to study that I don't have a book to study it. And so I know that these medieval movies are highly researched. And so when you sit down and you are looking at it, you are seeing the making of a kingdom. When I was watching Merlin, I was actually studying. The young prince stands up, he thinks he's a fighter. Meanwhile, everywhere he goes, the warlock must follow him. Because if he doesn't follow him, he will die. That means that kingdom is protected by the gift of the warlock. Because the spirit